Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm delighted to introduce an extraordinary Australian to us today whose courage, compassion and determination have changed lives across Cambodia. Originally from Melbourne, Emily Williamson has spent much of her life between Australia and Asia, from growing up in the second home in Bali to founding REACH Siem Reap. Her journey is one of purpose, grit and deep humanitarian commitment. Emily, welcome along, and it's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here.
Emily, your story really begins would be long before we talk about Cambodia, because you grew up between Melbourne and Bali with an extended Balinese family.
That's correct, yes.
So it's a unique upbringing. I just wondered if you could tell us, how did that shape your worldview?
Yeah, well, I think it plays a very, very big part in my worldview. I'm very, very fortunate. I grew up watching my parents take a lot of risks, and one of those risks was starting a business in Bali when I was 5 years old. So I had the privilege of being able to travel to Bali every year, spend 1 or 2 months there every year, and have, as you mentioned, an extended Balinese family. My parents are really good people, very values-based people, and whenever their team in Bali were unwell, my parents would fly members of the team over to Australia to gain access to better healthcare, because back then there wasn't access to great healthcare in Indonesia. And I'm watching my parents have such compassion for Balinese families and also watching them work across cultures. I think I just fell in love with Asian culture, number one. But number two, I learnt about how to respect others and work alongside others in different cultural contexts. I grew up with watching my parents run that business and work very, very hard to make that business work and have trust across borders. And I think that's made me want to live globally right from the get-go. I think my mum was asking, why do you have to live in Asia early on? And I'm like, I think that was your doing, Mum. Now my parents live permanently in Indonesia. So yeah, it's definitely shaped how I've gone on and lead my adult life.
Yeah. And of course you watch your parents, as you say, they ran international businesses whilst also seeing disadvantaged Indonesian families up close. Was there a particular moment in childhood when you first become aware of that inequality?
Yeah, I think as a kid it's very difficult to process and understand inequality until you're older and you look back on it. Yeah. I think definitely Nyoman, who I consider to be my second dad, he fell ill 2 times, both with small, injuries that ended up being life-threatening conditions. So I think one time he fell out of a tree and landed on a rusty nail, but without having tetanus vaccination, he then ended up being very, very ill with tetanus poisoning. And I remember my parents flying him to Australia and he actually got resuscitated on the operating board. And I think learning that was a real pivotal moment for me to understand that basic vaccinations weren't something that Nyoman had, and they saved his life then. I think that was a very pivotal moment. And also, I think this is a less frightening moment, but knowing that Nyoman didn't know when he was born. So he was like my second dad, and he just joked, I don't know what my birthday is, because he didn't have a birth certificate. And I think little moments like that growing up, we made up Nyoman's birthday and started celebrating it. And he had no idea. It's about 5 to 10 years he's unaware of when he was actually born, and that kind of experiences like that shaped my understanding that, there were inequalities.
Yeah, sure. And of course you studied at Shelford Girls Grammar, and then you completed a double degree in marketing and communications, design down at Swinburne, with 3 scholarships, which I think is just remarkable. Did you always know that you wanted to apply your skills to humanitarian causes when you were studying?
No, I definitely fell into it.
Right.
I fell quite deeply into it, but I feel very privileged. It was 21 that I learnt that I wanted to volunteer and fell in love with Cambodia. But I did not expect the trajectory of my career to quite go this way when I was studying at university. No, I didn't know at the time.
Yeah, and that's the same, I think, for everybody when you do studies. You first came to Cambodia at the age of 18.
Yes.
What do you remember most about that first visit?
Just how warm everyone was. They reminded me of like my Balinese extended family, and I didn't want to go on schoolies, so I went around Southeast Asia on my own. And I just remember how warm and hospitable they were, and I love a chat. So I remember being able to chat to everyone, even if there was a massive language barrier. I just remember being able to make friends everywhere I went in the remote villages, and I just fell in love with it.
Yeah, and I remember you described it really as a turning point for you, didn't you? What changed inside you during that experience? What led to that?
I think at age 18, that was definitely more the backpacking travel experience, falling in love with the country. It was 21 when I went back and decided to volunteer that I had a turning point. I volunteered for 2 weeks assisting teaching English in a local NGO, and I loved it, loved the kids and loved the team, but it was on the last day of that 2-week placement that the social workers, whether or not they should have, they did take me out to a village to see where the kids came from, and that was the turning point in my life. Because as warm and happy as they are, it's very difficult to understand the pain that's behind those smiles. And when I was able to see where the kids came from, that was the pivotal moment when I came back to Australia, started running Camberwell market stalls to try and fundraise and do as much as I could. It was really seeing the inequality up front that was the turning point.
Gee, that's fantastic, isn't it? And you returned in 2015 just to volunteer teaching English. And then again, twice more you did it. So at what point did you realise you weren't just volunteering, but you felt that this actually would be your calling in life?
I don't think there's ever been a moment where I've consciously thought about that. It's just been a flick was switch. A switch was flicked, sorry. And I literally just went for it.
Yep.
But there wasn't much consideration in terms of this is a calling. I wanted to do it, and so I did it.
Yeah. And of course at 23, Emily, you packed up your life in Australia, you moved to Siem Reap permanently, and it's a pretty bold decision, if you don't mind me saying, to do that, certainly at that age. Were you excited? Were you nervous? How did you feel about it?
Just excited, very excited. I actually hadn't completed my degree, which my parents weren't as excited about, but I took it online, which we've got the opportunity to do in Australia, and pursued the last 4 or 5 units in Cambodia. I was just very, very excited because I was volunteering remotely or fundraising remotely. And when the co-founder of that cause said, I'm heading away, would you like to come over and take my position? I couldn't believe it because I think it was a subconscious dream at that point. And then I just called my parents, said, I'm packing my bags and going to Cambodia. Mum's like, you better complete that degree. I'm like, I promise you I will. Very, very excited. Yeah. And back then I went across and volunteered for the first 8 months. So don't think my parents were as excited about that part, but I have very, very supportive family. So they helped fund almost my first year in Cambodia, and that's what afforded me to be able to do that to begin with.
That's fantastic. Hey, in 2017, you actually participated in a charity bike ride in Thailand for a respected Australian charity, and you witnessed the tangible impact of fundraising for the first time. What did you see on that ride that stayed with you?
Oh, it was definitely the camaraderie of people of all walks of life and people much older than myself at the time. I think I was 23, 24 when I did that. Yep. And I hadn't done a day of training. I'd actually been told by my dad, you're coming along on this charity bike ride. And I honestly, and that everyone on the ride knows this, I didn't want to go on it. So I had no idea what I was signing up for. Actually, my parents had signed me up for it. And day 2 or 3, I was struggling because I hadn't trained, but I had younger legs then, so I was able to get fit along the way. It was how I was treated by everyone, and understanding how much compassion there was from people of all walks of life was what stuck with me for sure. Yep. Getting to know people.
And of course, the viewers will be very interested to notice that then you decided to create a 650 kilometre bike ride from southern Cambodia to Siem Reap. Now that's no small feat, I've got to say, Emily. What motivated you to try that?
Honestly, just day 3 on the Thai ride, I was saying I was just riding alongside my dad and my brother, and I said this would be a really great way to raise funds because it was a great fundraising initiative, and it was such a great experience. I was like, this would be a great way to raise funds for the cause I was working for in Cambodia. So I said, why don't we try it? And I sat down with the founder of that Australian charity, and he was very kind to share me his model and give me some tips, and then away I went. And with family and community support back home, we managed to get 12 people onto the first ride. It was just day 3 of that ride.
So what were the biggest challenges trying to do it for that number of people?
I think the biggest challenges in general with those events is recruiting people onto them. Once you get them onto the event, the rest is easy because it's such an incredible, profound experience that people have, but it's actually convincing people to give up 2 weeks of their life, spend all that money, and then also fundraise substantial funds for a cause. That is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Once you get people on and committed, the rest is easy, and we have a very high return rate on our rides.
Yeah.
As does the Thai charity, because people like myself, they sign up to it because someone's told them really to do it because they've had that experience and they want to share that on. People sign up to it not knowing what they're going to experience, and that's my greatest pleasure now, watching people do it for the first time, because there's challenging, but through adversity we grow, and the bonds you make with people, it's much bigger than the charity work itself. It's actually what the riders and the people that get involved in that shared experience and our Cambodian team, it's what people experience together that makes it so rewarding. So the hardest part is getting people to sign up.
Yeah. And of course, in 2019, the number actually just about doubled to 27, I think you had in there. So when you saw the funds raised going directly to the impoverished families of Siem Reap, what did it feel like? It must have just felt so rewarding for you.
Yeah, it was. It was just knowing that we could raise funds to sustain life-changing programs was very, very rewarding.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. And of course, when we're talking about founding REACH, one of the dedications that came from founding REACH for you, how did you find that there was a sort of a gap in trying to fill when you established that organisation? So tell us a little bit about that.
So I think because I'd gone head over heels into fundraising for a cause I was working for, where I honestly at age 24 thought I'd be there forever. I was very, very loyal, and it wasn't in my plans to establish a new cause. Unfortunately, through fundraising, it became apparent to me it was being run with heart and not much business structure behind it. And so there wasn't enough governance or transparency in how they were operating. So unfortunately, I walked away from the cause because my friends and family, my parents are standing up with integrity, raising funds, and it's really important to us that we can then be accountable and show where those funds go. Yeah. So that I guess was the gap that we identified, because the programs were brilliant and they were changing lives, but we wanted to be able to assure our donors that there was budgeting and planning and sustainability in place. So that was the gap that was identified and why REACH was opened. Because
you're very passionate about breaking the poverty cycles for entire families within that area and getting young people into fair employment. Why focus on employment as a key lever for the change, Emma?
I think it comes down to the fact, unfortunately, in any country where there's high levels of poverty, or especially in Cambodia, the kids without education are in informal employment anyway. They're labouring as children. So, and we watch a lot of the parents and grandparents having to succumb to exploitative labour. So the key to breaking that cycle is people having fair employment. That's why if we can get more than one child from every family employed, that's really going to help the families break that generational cycle of poverty.
So without putting you on the spot, is there a story about a young person perhaps whose life's been transformed through these programs, do you think?
Absolutely. So we're only 6 years into running REACH, and it was a very, very tough start because 3 days after opening our community centre, COVID swept the globe. So we were mandated to shut down and operate as an emergency relief centre for the first few years. We enrolled kids to the age of 14 years old because I knew that our teachers, our incredible Cambodian team, would need a few years to help them build their capacity before further education and employment. But 2 years ago, our first student graduated grade 12, and she went down to Phnom Penh and got a fully funded degree to study nursing. So she's now in her second year of nursing. She's not yet employed. We have a few others. We've got about 5 or 6 that have gone through vocational programs that were not able to complete grade 12, and they've gone into the hospitality sector. But Chan Kim, I'll send you a link so you can watch this. Chan Kim's down in Phnom Penh now, and she's the trailblazer of our organisation. She's showing the kids that have come from these villages that are quite insular that they can jump on a bus, having never been to a capital city, and she went down with her mum. And we've helped her secure that degree, and she's doing an incredible job. And on the 31st of December just gone, we had 3 more girls complete grade 12 and pass. And we've got 2 now studying law and 1 studying to be a web developer. So it's on track. We've got, I think, 5 more in grade 12 this year. And then each year after, that's just going to start to snowball until we have about 25 a year coming out of the program.
No, that's just a fantastic effort. And I suppose it begs the question, what makes REACH different from other short-term aid initiatives, do you think?
I think there's lots of approaches that organisations can take. I think we're working very, very deeply with, I guess, a small number of families, 190 families, and we're providing holistic support. We're very values-based. So a lot of organisations, and I understand why, will select the most academic students because they're going to have the highest chance of getting the best paid jobs and the best scholarships. But we see every child as equal, and we also see the parents and the grandparents, the carers of the family, just as important as the kids in that picture. To me, a student like Chang Kim going on to nursing or a student going into a salon is an equal success. And so we're really trying to help the kids gain any pathway. And we have quite a long project. So we work with the kids from age 4.5 until they secure fair employment. And we try and instill values in them that it doesn't matter if you fail, because in Cambodia there's a lot of pressure on the kids when they're failing. So we're really working on values-based initiatives, including the parents in the picture, and making sure we can help the children and the young adults secure that end stage. So it's not really a short-term program, it's their whole educational journey and supporting their social well-being as well and the needs of the family.
Yeah, and it actually sounds like you're ensuring sustainability rather than dependency by putting them through these programs where they can actually get full-time work on a long period of sustained employment.
100%, and this is that key. Sustainability is key, and we work with them for a long time, but we make sure they go to the public school system. Like we're making it so that the kids will be able to, once they have gained that fair employment with the education that they've been able to have the opportunity to access, they'll be able to sustain that for their own children.
Yeah.
The services that they're using at REACH or having access to support, they're all public services. We really want to make sure that those kids can go on and then break the cycle for their family. I think one other different thing with REACH is I know a lot of organisations will choose one child in a family for that scholarship. Now, 80 to 90% of my team, we've got 45 Cambodian team members, 85% of them, they come from organisations supporting their education, and 5 times out of 6, they're the one child in their family that have gone on to get that scholarship, and a lot of their older siblings have dropped out of school. This is very, very common in Cambodia. So where we're different is we want to ensure not just one child, but as many children from every family that we work with can go on to fair employment. So recently last year, we actually we reduced our age of kindergarten. It used to be for 5.5-year-olds, but then we realised our family base, they all had really young children. So we've actually allowed them at age 4 to come into the program because we're trying to ensure as many kids from any one family can access our services and all of them can get good jobs when they're older.
Now, I've noticed you've got a very strong passion for all the humanitarian work, but I think emotionally it can be exhausting as well. I suppose the thing is, how do you protect your own well-being to make sure that you can continue on in this role that you're doing so well at the moment?
I think I work at an arm's length from the social work cases. We have an incredible Cambodian team that deal with all of that, and that's a measure I've put in place. At the old organisation I worked, there wasn't really that barrier, and I got to know beneficiaries, I'd say, too deeply, which took a very big emotional toll on me. So I knew when I'd opened REACH that that's not my function. My function is not to get too close to the beneficiaries, as much as I'd love to, but to keep arm's length and professional boundaries in place so that I don't, we're working with the poorest families in the area intentionally, which of course comes with it some very upsetting situations that unfold. So by keeping an arm's length from that, it protects me emotionally.
And of course your life's been split between Asia and Australia. How do you stay connected to your family while you're living abroad?
Well, funnily enough, my parents now live full-time in Indonesia. My brother's married to an Indonesian, just had a baby. So home for me, obviously I have roots in Australia, but home for me is travelling over to Bali and seeing them there. And then unfortunately now with our fundraising, I come here once a year. But no, I'm 10, 11 months of the year in Cambodia. So
do you ever think to yourself how different your life would be if you'd never moved to Cambodia?
Yes, sometimes. When I was younger, no, I didn't really consider that. But the older I get, the more I realise why people would say certain things to me. I consider it for a moment, but I truly believe I would be nowhere near as happy.
Yeah. And on the harder days, what keeps you going?
Honestly, it's not a conscious thought. You just keep going. I think the team are what keep me going, because I don't spend much time with the beneficiaries. It's the local team I work with, and they are just so resilient and passionate and kind and so respectful as people. So when you're surrounded by a community of people that are propelling you, it's them. They're just so passionate. In COVID, most of their partners and family members lost their jobs. And I'd made a commitment 3 days before we were mandated to close as a school by the government. I'd made a commitment to the 15 team members then and all those kids that we'd support them. And I was really scared because my charity bike rides were completely postponed and cancelled, and they were supposed to fund the first year of operations. But I remember the Cambodian team, a lot of them, their partners had lost their jobs. The fact that they still had job security, they left all their problems at the front gate, and they had enormous problems. Like they couldn't, access to food. We were giving food relief to the staff as well. But the fact that they were so able to not complain in a period like that, there's no better people I'd want to surround myself with. So it's them, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And when you look back at that 18-year-old visit, now founding and leading REACH, what makes you the most proud when you think about it?
I think I'm just proud of the connections I've made and the people I've surrounded myself with, because REACH is really, it's not me, it's a whole community of people. I've got an incredible group of advisory board members, incredible donors from around the world. I'm just proud of everyone, really.
And of course, what have you learned about leadership during this journey? Because it would have been a real focus for you to try and make this a real success.
Well, we've had crisis after crisis, if I'm being honest. So I learned a lot more than I had signed up for very early on. I've learned that if you stick to your values and you don't compromise those values and you have difficult conversations, that's how you can build a great culture. And I've learned that to be accountable, you really need to have good people around you and mentors that can support you in decision making, and that an organisation requires a lot of people.
It does.
Yeah.
So looking ahead for the next, say, 5 years, what do you hope REACH will have achieved?
Well, the whole reason we're running this organisation is to have more outcomes like Chang Kim. So we've got several outcomes already, but I just really hope that commitment I made 6 years ago to all of those young children, that we can stay true to that commitment and we can help them access that further education and find fair employment. So I think in about 5 years from now, we expect to have 120 students as alumni, and that's what I hope for.
And what role can international supporters play in helping organisations like yours to succeed, particularly as we're talking to Rotarians at the moment?
Okay, so there's many ways. Not everyone has to ride a bicycle. However, if it appeals to you, we've also got e-bikes, and we've got quite a few Rotarians that come on our rides. So there's that. That's one of our largest fundraisers. You can fly over to Cambodia and jump on an e-bike or a mountain bike and cycle with us through remote villages throughout Cambodia and have an absolutely life-changing experience. You can help us connect. So I come to Australia every year. You can help us connect with more clubs. So we have had about 12 clubs involved with REACH. They are involved in many different ways. One is coming on the bike ride. Another is watching their club members ride through the gates at the end of that event and get involved at the school at the end. Another is several clubs sponsor a class at REACH, so they fund the operating costs of one class per year to ensure 25 of our kids can have access to our program. Beyond that, that's our education program, but we have 13 programs at REACH, and our goal in the next 3 to 4 years is to have all of them fully sponsored. So we're looking for more program sponsors. And then there's volunteering, and we've got an incredible, we see REACH a global effort, a humanitarian effort across cultures and borders. So we have many ways to volunteer, and so there's ways to, like, we have one Rotarian that helps our outreach community worker as a supervisor, so does remote supervision once a month. There is endless ways. People joke I can give a few hours, and people on my advisory board say be careful what you wish for, because if you ask Emily for work, she'll give you a lot. She'll give you plenty. There's plenty of different avenues, and I can always find some way for someone to help us.
Which is fantastic. So finally, Emily, if there's one message that you'd like to share with the Rotarians who are watching, the viewers that are actually seeing this across the world, to take away about service, courage or community, what would it actually be?
I think something that's very important is listening to the people you're working with, especially if it's not your own community, not putting your own ideas first, working alongside locals. And if you don't have the opportunity to be on the ground of an organisation that is in a foreign country, make sure to listen to the people that are in the foreign country and the communities they're working with on what sustainability actually means and how it might look in Cambodia in the Siem Reap in a village may be very, very different to how it looks in Australia, and just being mindful of the ways to work and support, because it isn't always how you might first imagine.
No, true. Emily, it's been an absolute delight to chat to you this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your journey so openly and so generously too. It's given everybody a much better understanding of what you do and how you go about it. Your story reminds us that real change doesn't begin with large organisations. It begins with one person that can just say the word yes. From Melbourne to Bali, from scholarships to a 650-kilometre bike ride, and from volunteering to founding REACH. Your journey, I think, is a powerful testament to what determination and a great heart can achieve. Thank you so much for all the work you do, Emily, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.